Aloha, everyone. Welcome to All Intuitive Conversation. I am excited to have my first conversation with Jaye Bricourt. So I am going to add her to our stream. Aloha, Jay.
Aloha from the Hudson Valley.
It is so nice to connect with you today.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, Felicia. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So this is the first Tuesday after the holiday of Thanksgiving. Do you celebrate Thanksgiving? Do you do that?
I I do. We had a wonderful, gracious day of the usual food, all the trimmings, and just a day of gratitude and reflection.
Yes. Do you cook?
I did, but I kind of pre-cooked by ordering a smoked turkey online. So a
Yes.
little advanced prep.
Look, make efficient use of your resources. Love it.
Absolutely. I'm 100% for that.
Okay, so is your last name pronounced Bricourt? Bricourt? How do you pronounce it?
Bricourt.
Bricourt. Okay, so as you guys know, this is my very first conversation. So just like when you meet someone, you ask like, "Hey, how do you pronounce those things?" We're definitely keeping it authentic because I'm learning more about Jay right here, right now. So Jay, I know you now celebrate Thanksgiving and I know you make efficient use of your resources. So tell me a little bit more about you.
Well, I am a lifelong learner. I live in the Hudson Valley with my family. My son is two young adults. My son is in the military. My daughter is in the first year of college. I am, a very active woman in my community. I love to be a part of something larger. I love to give back. In the process of, getting to know myself. This pandemic, the silver lining is just all about getting to know me, reconnecting with the authentic self for
Ooh.
who I am. So I am that I am.
Yes. Okay. Well, love that. So, two adult children. Thank your son for his service and your daughter
Thank you.
excelling in school, learning, doing her part. So you stood what stood out was learning more about your authentic self during the pandemic. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, the pandemic, really gave me an opportunity to sit still. We all had to sit still because we were in a pandemic. We
Mhm.
were quarantined. And for anyone in the audience who knows much about spirituality, we can learn a lot about ourselves when we sit still. So
Mm.
it gave me the chance to reflect, read, write, put some different projects in my life, hobbies. I formally launched my blog. It's been a hobby in the background, never too much marketing, never too much publicity. So
Mhm.
I dive into my writing and I am hoping to compile all the blogs over time and launch a book in the near future.
Well, of course. I love that. So what are you blogging about?
Life, personal finance, small business success, culture, relationship, motivation, education. Those are my main topics, just a reflection of who I am and what I've learned over the years.
Okay. Well, I know you said natural, but I'm about the promotion as well. So where can people find this blog?
Let's talk topics. Topics is spelled with an X, TOPIXS.com.
Okay.
No
So
more bars.
what's the X? What's behind the X?
I don't know. I just wanted something different. I'm such a straight shooter person. I'm like, let's mix it up a bit. Let's get just something different. Something different.
Okay. So something different. We got the X, y'all. So make sure you go and check out her blog. So tell me about one of the blogs that you wrote that was like one of your most challenging to publish.
Ooh, I would say, I just looked at it today, and I would say the one about the power of my journaling, writing in a journal. I've had a journal since I was a teenager, and that's how I'm going to transform the book. So, can you imagine what your 18-year-old self thought and said? I'm going to make that public. And I've
Oh.
taken bits and pieces of my 30-year journey of my
Mhm.
journal and turned some of those into the blog. So the evolution, the personal development. What was I thinking at 18 and 19 to what I'm thinking today? And
Mhm.
how my, education, meeting people, mentoring, being mentored, has really developed me into who I am.
Yeah. Well, first off, you have a very valuable aspect of a lot of times, people have said that, like, what would my 18-year-old self say to my, but you got a journal of that. So that is very priceless in regards to your development journey because you can look back and see, ooh, or, like, oh yeah, like I was, on the right track kind of thing. Like, so that's pretty, cool that you have that. So what was it at 18 that said, okay, Jay, start writing journalists? Did you get like a word, a vision? Like, what was it? Was you going through something that said, I need to start writing this down? What was that spark?
A combination of it all, to be honest with you, Felicia.
Hmm.
Being 18, going to school, it was about a way of release.
Okay.
30 years ago, therapy was not as readily acceptable. And
Mm,
another way to release and own in and what I was feeling was to write it. So
yes.
just put it on paper, get it off my chest, get it out of my mind. That was an approach.
Yeah. That resonates in the sense of, if you guys are watching this, it's a video podcast. We're both African American females. And so it becomes this concept that, like you said, do you go to therapy? Do you talk about your feelings and sharing all those things? And one of those moments that stood out for me as I was talking about my Live Smart journey was the relax, relate, release. And I had saw that on the A Different World episode. And Whitley was going to therapy about her relationships. And that was some of the guidance that she had gotten about relax, relate, and release. Looking at your life as a whole and what is it that's serving you, not serving you, and all that. But even back then, that was such a message because they were showing that yeah, people go to therapy sessions to get guidance for that,
Mhm.
and just dealing with your stuff. So journaling definitely is um a great way to do that. I know myself, I also have a journal that I had started. It wasn't something, you're just like, oh, I'm just gonna write. It was coming out of frustration. Like you go somewhere, you're like, okay, I need to release it, get it out. I didn't call it a release, but
Mhm.
it was I need to put it out of my body down. And that felt like the safest place, to do that. So now I can see how that might have a connection with you when you're saying, oh my gosh, I'm gonna put all this stuff public on a on a blog to do that. So what was it that helped you to say when that imposter voice kind of came up, like, you really want to share that? You want to let everybody know that? So you were like, yeah, click post. There it is. What helped you in that moment?
Over the years, I've read thousands of books. I'm an avid reader. And the journey of reading all these personal development books have told us be authentic, be
Mm,
transparent. If we avoid being transparent and authentic, we will really stifle other things in our personal growth, career, relationships, finances. You'll be amazed of how just being inauthentic within ourselves can stunt that growth. And I
mm,
said, okay, if I have to grow in those aspects, I have to be first authentic with myself, expand that circle to my family, expand that circle to colleagues, and then expand that to the public. You never know who it can help. And
mm,
you both heard speakers over the years, A-listers, authors, educators say that is the way to go. Be authentic, put it out there.
okay. Love that. So that leads me to my next question for you about putting it out there. So, one of the challenges I had was about imposter syndrome and how oftentimes we kind of just dismiss our successes. So I would love to hear what is a success that you are like, yeah, I did that.
Wow, that's a great question. I just had to answer that question in a video recently for a
Mm,
fellowship that I was applying to.
mm-hmm.
I have to say, I look at everything as a success, to be honest with you. And I don't mean to brag or boast, but even if it's deemed not to be a success, I learn from it to
Mm,
overcome it and try and pivot something else. So again, it goes back. I've spent 20 plus years in corporate America, grinding and grinding and grinding,
mm-hmm.
only to end up saying, okay, what else is there? Do I feel like I've accomplished what I wanted to accomplish? Whether it's the
Wow.
title, the salary, or the recognition, and it wasn't there. So I had to find it within myself. So I would say everything I have touched has manifested to some level of gold to say,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it's leading me to another path of success. So I can't really answer that question specifically as one finite thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
pretty much everything.
Okay. So I get that, everything, but I'm still going to have you take you there. What is a project or something that you did that you said, yeah, I did that? Because, like I said, I get the challenges, and you look at it and they're like, oh, it's still success 'cause I learned something from that. But what is something that you're like, yeah, is it that certificate on the wall? Is it a project? I want to hear about something that Jay did and was just like, yeah. And that way, if I come back to you and be like, okay, if I have this issue or whatever the case may be, I know I can reach out to Jay because she's done it before. She can do it again.
What if I had to choose one thing, and you
Hmm.
push me even more beyond this?
Uh-huh.
But being a mom is a huge job, right?
Hmm.
You have your children, you want them to be healthy, you want them to be successful. And I'm so proud of my son and my daughter. So, the journey of being a parent, a career woman, I've always had some hobby serving on some board, some side gig service to the community going on. So, the balance of being doing that, I would have
Yeah.
to say that is the project. Being a good mom, being a good steward of my community,
Yes.
being a good mentor to a lot of young people in my life. I'm also an adjunct, so I constantly engage with young people and hopefully leave something behind after a semester. A lot of them follow me to this day, reach out to me to this day. So it's that connection to community, I would say, and just really having that brand to say I'm respectful, that people trust me enough to come to me, to reach out to me for information, advice,
Hmm.
connection. I'm that connector.
Okay, the connector. So yes, I'm glad you went ahead and said that being a mom, and I can see how that aligns because in your introduction you talked about your kids. So it's like that was at the very first, top of your "Who is Jay" kind of thing. So that really stands out. So the connector piece. Tell me about a time when you felt disconnected.
Mm. There were many a times in the corporate work environment where I felt disconnected from the larger source of what was there for me and the direction of why I'm there. Why am I here? Answering that
Mm,
question. Is it to climb for that highest title? Is it the recognition? Is it the respect? Is it the salary? Why am I here? Trying to be seen in the corporate environment as a younger African American woman, just in
yeah.
the grind, in the hustle, just trying to figure out if I'm in the right place and earning that respect from my colleagues. That was a difficult era of my life.
Hmm. So how did you manage during that time? Did you have help? Was it just your journaling? Like what helped you to to survive and get
And
through that.
the connections really helped me to survive. At that point, having mentors
Mm,
that I could lean on for guidance, having other projects. Always been an entrepreneur, so have redirecting some energies into that, understanding why microaggression exists, not holding it in to develop heart disease and headaches and migraines and
okay, so look, so break that down for people. What is a microaggression for those that do not know? How do you define microaggression? What is that? What does that look like?
microaggression really comes in all forms, from whether it's from a colleague on the same level, a peer, or a supervisor, in the way they speak to you, in
Mm,
the different approaches, the different projects, the different. It's just a slightly different approach that I experience, that I recognize that my other colleagues did not experience, whether it's um, uh, white male, white female, did not experience. I experienced those things, and it was blatant in front of me.
mm-hmm. So, have you by chance seen King Richard?
Not yet. We were supposed to see Thanksgiving Day, and
Okay,
did not go out and see it.
okay. So I'm not going to tell you the whole movie because it's the whole the experience of seeing that. But it is something that stood out in the movie is that there's this scene, you probably can even Google it now. There's this scene interview to where, I'm all about pulling it up. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to share with everyone, where it was Venus. So Venus was doing an interview and she was 14. And the interviewer was a white male, was kind of like, hey, what makes you, so confident, feeling like you can, defeat your opponent and everything. So mind you, at this point, she wasn't playing like professional tennis. Her dad had pulled her out of the juniors, and so she hadn't really played. And she gave this confident answer. And he just kept pushing and pushing in the sense of, well, why are you really feeling confident? And he comes in, the father, and he was like, hold, like, stop. And let me tell you why. He's like, you're dealing with a 14-year-old African American, female. She gave you a confident answer. Why do you keep poking at that?
Mhm.
Like, no. He was like, leave it alone. She gave you the answer, accept the answer, move on. And it was so impactful. Like, that is what people like for him. He probably even think nothing but I'm just being a good reporter asking these questions. But that's like some of the things of like, well, maybe had it gone the other way, he maybe stepped in. Maybe I'm not supposed to have
Mm.
this confidence because he's keep asking me this same roundabout question. But I was like, shout out to to the Richard, to the dad of I don't really care if these cameras is going. Like, you're not going to beat down her mentality and her confidence. And a lot of times that has had happened over a long period of times. And that's one of those things where we talk about, it was an example for me of like what that microaggression could look like. Of probably genuinely didn't think of it at the time, had no real ill intent, but then it's like, oh, he was like, you're dealing with a 14-year-old African American female. Like, there's a different experience. So when you're coming from that perspective, she's going to view it differently versus, maybe someone else or something like that. So it was just like, hmm, oh, like, okay, So it's being aware of those, as you just said, it's conversations. Like, that was a conversation that could have changed the trajectory,
Absolutely.
of her performance. And many times that's what happens, is that we've had a conversation with someone.
Mhm.
You think about peer reviews and, performance evaluations, and like that one conversation, they'd be like, take you off your track. Like, well, maybe I'm not that good and
Ex-
maybe I don't belong here, or what the case may be. And that's what's so, just important about that, is the words that we speak and talking wisely, to each other. Um, and in the sense of, part of the motivation for the show is like, yeah, there's respect, there's sense of wonder between each other, but there's also validation that there could be fear of oh, it's live and I've never, met this person before. What are we going to talk about? What's going to come out? Like, because it's all of that. But it's like, how do we get comfortable just being in the moment and just with each other? So,
We get to
yeah.
know each other.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Okay. So, with that, what is the next thing for Jay? What is it that you want to do?
Well, now that I'm an empty nester, I
uh,
have a long list of things that I have been prepping for 2 years, beginning with the launch of my blog,
mhm,
my book, just engaging more in my, as an adjunct in our local schools, our local community college, which I sit on the board of the foundation. So that gives me an inroad to really mentoring young people.
mhm,
Continue with my career growth, of course, that pays the bills. And traveling once the pandemic is lifted and it's safe to
mhm,
go back out into the world and to be able to get on a plane and go across the world. I would love to be able to do that some more, and
mhm,
just really building that relationship with my son and my daughter on an adult level now. I'm
mm,
no longer the manager in their life. I'm now the observer and the guider and giving them guidance.
mhm.
So would love to be able to continue to build that positive relationship with them as they go find themselves in their
Yeah.
careers and their endeavors.
Okay. So those are lots of different things, ranging from family to professional career. Um, so one of the things that I found, like as we talked about before, is about help. So with all those things that you're thinking about, where may you potentially be stuck, and where would you say, I'm open to help? I need this right here. Because like I said, this will come out. Those that are watching live, those may watch the replay, and they might be like, oh yeah, I might have that resource that Jay can need in order to make it, easy.
Right. Well, because of my experience over the past 20 years in the corporate environment, I would love to be able to transition in a business concept I've had for years and make that uh, income provider. And
Okay.
so I can completely transition out of the employee state of mind into the employer state of mind. And that will give me an inlet to hiring young people, mentoring them more directly, and just being that full-fledged entrepreneur, not to, no longer a gig,
Uh-huh.
but
Yes.
I'm now the business owner and employer of this entity.
Okay.
So
So,
it's a
yeah,
challenge.
keep going. Uh-huh. So, I started shuffling the
I
card
see.
decks to um to kind of see like what the message was. And the very first one, as soon as you started talking, that came out was about the throat chakra.
Ooh.
And see, and the throat chakra is your communication tool. It's right here. So it becomes, how do I transform this conversation from talking as a high level executive employer to now I am really entrepreneur. And so the message here of encouraging for the feedback, because as you can see, she's speaking and talking to people in that whole corporate setting. She's
Mhm.
talking to people that don't necessarily look like her, looks more like you. In that sense, is working on your throat chakra and your communication. Have you ever done a meditation with your throat chakra kind of thing before?
No, I haven't. I've done others, but not the throat.
Okay. So I have one that I'll share with you that can
Right?
walk you through. It's one that I've done. It's just one that that's a good facilitator of being able to manage that. And so encouraging you, so that way this is spinning in the area that's high vibe, high energy for you, because you're going to be doing a lot of talking. And so then the other card that had came out here was address. And so with this,
Hmm.
blue is the color, and I'm looking more so of the over here. Is blue is about the throat chakra. So address those doubts or this disbelief that you may have of like, am I really going to be able to transition and do this well? Is confirmation like you're going to address those doubts, meet them head on. Like, okay, yeah, no, and then practice and strengthen your throat chakra in that area, and you'll be fine.
Interesting. Thank you for that.
Yeah, because it's about the confirmation of how you speak and you're communicating. But up here, you're gonna doubt because you've been doing it for 20 plus something years, right? And so now that you're aware of that, that what could be limiting me in this area, and it's just gonna be this space up here. So it's like you want to get out of your head, so to speak, and just know that you can transition to the other side of like, yeah, absolutely. Because you're gonna have doubts, like, really, can I do this full time? This really gonna, supplement income. This has
Mhm.
always just been a side hustle, not my whole thing. You absolutely can have a full-time career speaking as an entrepreneur, doing the things that you want to love, sharing your blog and all that. But address that shadow side that's gonna come up that's gonna tell you that no, you can't. And the way that you can address that is through your throat chakra meditation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting. Very
Yes.
interesting.
Cool. All right. Well, you definitely, like I said, I will share that link with you, like behind the scenes, so we can kind of talk about that. But
Please.
thank you so much for sharing you with me and with the audience. I hope you enjoyed your experience on this all intuitive conversation.
Thank you, Felicia. It was my pleasure, and I had a lot of fun. Lots and lots of fun. I can do this again.
For sure. Absolutely. All right. So thank you everyone for joining us. We will see you next week.
Be well.